All right, guys. Yo, happy New Year. Welcome back to the Sobriety University channel. Really excited for this one today. We're going to be talking about why quitting marijuana was the best decision of Derek's life. So, in the last few videos, we talked about why it was the best decision of my life. And I'm very excited to hear Derek's story on why it changed his life. So, watch those other two videos. They're going to be down in the description below. And welcome back, Derek Vidal. Good to see you.
What's up, man? I watched your other two parts of this beforehand too, so we've got slightly different stories, but I agree with everything you said for sure.
Appreciate it, man, and appreciate guys. Those videos were inspired by Derek and his suggestions. So big shout out in the comments for Derek. And why? And for those of you who don't know Derek, Derek came to me for sobriety coaching, and he was dealing with marijuana addiction, like many of you are, and like I was myself. And together we got to work on really developing that mindset to quit marijuana and kind of get a game plan for life. And it's just so inspiring to hear that weed is no longer a part of your journey. And so take us away. Like, where did it begin for you? What got you into the chronic?
Yeah, I started in high school, and I think it's hard for very many people to not like it. I mean, besides maybe the first time you freak out a bit, and it's funny because I freaked out so hard the first time and was swearing I'll never do it again, and then you just all of a sudden do it again. And I remember doing it in high school every lunch, and then we'd come back to school, be way too high to be there. I mean, you're already awkward enough as a high school student, and then you add that in there and then you're just in class, about to be called on. They're doing participation credit day, and you have to speak to make a good grade. And man, it was just nerve wracking. I mean, it's already like scary in high school, like getting called on randomly by the teacher. But like every day we did it, and I remember thinking like every time I was high coming back to class, I was like, don't do this again tomorrow. And then like sure enough, like for whatever reason, like when you're sober, you just like completely forget
Yeah.
why you told yourself that before. And then you just do the whole thing over again because it's so fun to on the drive to Taco Bell to smoke weed. And then you
Mhm.
get the Taco Bell. And then now you got to go back to class. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, this sucks. But I mean, what am I going to do? Not smoke weed to Taco Bell? So yeah, that was just like my whole high school. But like right from the beginning, I mean, I was like a daily smoker fairly quickly into it. And then once I moved out and then got to college, and now you can ditch classes without your parents getting a call. And
Mm.
now you can go back to your dorm room. And, you know, then I finally like moved out and then there was just like no supervision. Then it really, you know, increased from there. And then I started online entrepreneurship. So now I'm just like living on my own, working on the computer all day. And now, like, why wouldn't I just smoke all the time? So, you
Mm.
know, it really, my usage only increased since I started. And the first time I ever did it, I think I was 17. I'm about to turn 33. And I would say that I was like pretty much an all day, everyday smoker for about 13 of those years. And I always thought, like, I wonder how well I would do in life without it because I have done very well, even stoned the whole time. Like, I was a very successful Cutco rep. I would just get high before I'd do my appointments, and then sometimes I'd get a little too high for the appointment. But I'd done so many appointments before that I'd be like, oh man, go to the gas station, get a freaking 5 hour energy. Like I was always just like, you know, compensating with something else, like tons of caffeine, to like get myself back down. But I was always pushing it. I was like, okay, I got a rule. I can't smoke unless it's like an hour and a half before the appointment or more. And I would like break that all the time. You know, I'd be like, oh, it's like an
Okay.
hour 20. So just like a small hit. And then, you know, there's so many appointments that like I could have sold so much more that I was just way too high on. What's
Quick
that?
question for you.
Yeah.
So something that I found interesting is that you did well in school and smoked. And the school I went to, the kids that smoked usually didn't go to college. So, what do you think was different about you that allowed you to still excel in academics?
I have a really crazy good memory. And high school is mostly memorizing stuff, like definitions and I'm pretty good at math and science. Like I was in all the advanced classes too. It's funny. I'm like the only stoner in like the
I
AP
was gonna say,
classes.
yeah,
Uh like kids always thought like, why is this kid here? Like one of them actually told me that he's like, I really didn't think you were smart, but then you really impressed me by the end of it. And it's because I can study the night before the test and get an A in high school. And in college, my rule is I have to study 2 nights before the test and then
Okay.
I'll get an A.
Wow.
But yeah,
Amazing.
I did plenty well enough. But I did not pay attention at all. I played cell phone games the entire class in high school and college, assuming the teacher, was not the kind of teacher to call me out. I would just freaking play games. And then I would get a B or an A on every test because I studied the night before. And yeah, so it was acceptable there. And socially, I'm very social. I'm very extroverted. And when I
Mhm.
smoke weed, it brings me down to like a normal person's extrovertedness.
Ah,
So I wasn't like
for
someone who
sure.
just became a hermit either. Like it was always permissible for me to smoke. And I
Okay.
almost did it because it made me more normal. Like my ambitions like were too high for like for high school, or like, I've always like had it in me that I know I wanted to achieve the most out of life. Um,
Mm.
but I almost like you can't find very many people to relate to you.
Yeah.
Even in college, they're not entrepreneurs. They're pursuing the path of a traditional career. And most of them are just trying to get hired from wherever.
Mm.
And yeah, really, when I started selling Cutco, that is when I finally met people that were cut from the same cloth.
Mm.
And I really
100%.
realized that I was different because I remember like doing my training class. There was like 17 people in it, and we all went out to sell as much as we could for the first 10 days. I have like a whole contest around it. And they're like, try to sell $10,000. Like, who can do it? And I sold like 5,400. And I was like, damn it. I bet a bunch of the other people did it. And I got there and I was number one by far. Like
Mm.
half of them had already quit. And then number two had done like 3 appointments, and his parents bought a ton to like sell like 3,000. I did 33 appointments. Like number two did like 3 appointments. So I was like, what is going on here? I started realizing like the world does not hustle like I do. And I still
Ah,
hustle more than them, even when I'm high. So it was always permissible. I always had enough success to keep doing it.
mm.
And really, in business, where I hit the wall is like entrepreneurship is freaking hard. Okay. Like in Cutco, you're selling like really the world's best knives. These are some of the best, like easiest products to sell out there. They've been around since 1949. It's very well known how to do it. There's the scripts. There's all these people who have done it successfully before that you can learn from. So you're already coming into a proven business model, and then you're just like getting better at the sales appointment over time. And then once you get into entrepreneurship and you have to make your own course and make your own website, and it probably won't work the first time. So you got to come up with another idea. Like I'm on like business number 9 in 6 years. And now I
Mm.
got 2 that I'm totally off to the races on in 2024. But I had to completely scrap my main business in 2023 and test like a bunch of businesses to figure it out. Like it's the hardest career path that you can do, really, is entrepreneurship, where you're coming up with original ideas. And I always realized that I was a little bit behind. Like I've told Joel before, I was like, if I had come up with my 2020 business idea in 2018, I would have been a millionaire. But instead, I make high 5 figures because I'm a little late on it. And I
Mhm.
realized that I was always behind the curve because weed is not a performance enhancing drug. So even though I'm doing pretty good work, I'm getting it done. The YouTube video is totally acceptable, even though there are some videos that I did not put eye drops in, and I just look freaking stoned out of my mind. Like I have like 400 podcast episodes from episode 1 to like 330. I'm high for all of them.
Wow.
So I
Bullshit.
make it work. Like I had enough
Yeah.
skill, but this is just hard enough that I need it to be all of me. So like that's really where this being the best decision I ever made came to play, because I just was always doing well, but I was purposefully putting an anchor on me.
You're what we call a functional stoner. So it's somebody that can get the shit done, have success in many areas, and still smoke weed. What you're noticing though was that it was still holding you back. And that's kind of, I think, the big lesson is everyone's a little bit different. And weed is really going to be a hindrance for your growth. And it's like you can't compare your growth to anyone else's growth uh, to the point where it's unhealthy. For myself, like I had to study in college. I thought I could be like you, where I could just study a couple nights before the test, like I did in high school, and it didn't work. So I didn't get into Cutco or into sales until way later. So it's not right for me to compare my story with yours to the degree that like, oh well, Derek did this, I should do this. I can't do this because Derek did this or something like that. The real lesson is to look within and say, okay, where am I slacking in my life, and where could I be better if weed was out of the picture. So Derek, what was the worst experience you've had on weed, and what were some of those moments that really made you see, okay, this ain't working for me anymore?
Yeah, I think the things that felt like the deepest regret, the things that actually led me to addressing it, I was dating someone in 2019, and whenever I would start dating someone, I wouldn't smoke weed around them, right? I would be like, all right, like I'm going on a date, like obviously I want to smoke weed. And then once you get into the relationship, then you start getting comfortable with them and you're like, hey, by the way, I'm high all the time is normally how I do
Mhm.
it. And once I introduced that, this girl's very loud, like cannot control her volume. We'd go places and I'm fine with that, sober, but high, I'm like quiet, like everyone thinks I'm high here. Like I'm trying to lay low and like it just did not work at all. Like and
Mhm.
I ended up breaking up with her because like she was annoying, honestly, is like
Okay.
why I kind of did it because like I was just so sick of her and she wasn't very supportive of like entrepreneurship and stuff like that. It wasn't a good relationship for other reasons too. But I realized I was like that was actually largely my fault that I was annoyed by her because like that was never a thing before. Like it only
Mm.
came into play when I would be like so stoned that I'd be like, let's just go to the grocery store and like let's get out of there as quick as possible. We're not trying to like have like I wasn't like present in the moment, you know. I was like battling freaking anxiety in my head, and then now like she's like not, you know, helping with that. Like I'm like, let's just lay low, get our munchies, and get out of here. And yeah, there's just a lot of that that didn't work. So that was the first thing that made me realize like I need to get this under control. So I went like on a 50-day streak and very difficult. I would definitely consider myself pretty depressed uh, in that time because I had really got my happiness from weed, and I was like running two companies that weren't working at all, and both of those companies are closed now. Like
Mm.
I was not on the right path in general.
Yeah.
So what's really difficult about weed, I think that it feels beneficial if you're off purpose or you're on the wrong path because it will make you feel okay about it. But that's
Mm.
also detrimental to getting on the right path. So a lot of this is really having to embrace the pain. And I had never dealt with the pain or pleasures of life without weed in there. So I was now like having to come to terms with these businesses I'm running aren't right and I need to make massive shifts. And if I smoked weed about this, I'd be like, it's all good. I'll figure it out. Like I had such a high risk aversion when I would
Mm.
smoke because like it's just like it's all good. Like I really had an it's all good mentality. And that also kind of, you know, kept me moving at a slow pace. So then like I actually did end up getting back on it and I enjoyed it so freaking much because it was such a breath of fresh air after those 50 days of just like constant stress
Mm.
that then I went back on every day, all day for another like 2.5 years
Wow.
until I finally started seeing someone else. And then I totally self sabotaged that thing. And I realized like, this is weed. Like, that is like, it's not the root of my problem, but it is like,
It's not how,
um,
it's not a cure.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's blocking me from ever addressing the cure. It's like
Ah,
the layer above it, like, it has to be
right.
dissected first in order for me to get to it. Like, I'm kind of
Yeah.
imagining, like, an actual weed in the ground, and it's like you keep, like, you gotta get, like, the roots out, right, for it
Yes.
to go away.
Perfect
Um,
analogy.
so yeah, it was, and once I got rid of that, what makes it so hard, apart from, like, the physical addiction and everything, is if you're not used to just doing life, uh, without it, then a lot of things, you know, will like you're going to have to confront a lot of things.
Mm.
So when I would smoke weed before, in order to, if I would get too high, but I'm like, I have to work, I have an Adderall prescription. So, okay, I'll do some Adderall to compensate. And then I'm drinking a bunch of coffee. And now I'm just like, okay, well, now I'm on Adderall and weed and coffee. So, like, my brain's all like crazy. Let me like play some video games before I get to work. Like, it was always like, I was like, just going from really one addiction to another, because dopamine is the thing that once you get a little bit, you kind of want to keep stacking it
Yeah.
and get more. You're like, all right, now that I'm high, let's play a video game or do something crazier, right? Oh,
Yeah.
even sometimes I'd be like, I'll do like a little alcohol to like calm me down. And it's funny because I feel like I was always just trying to be sober. I was like, let me do
Mm.
like enough weed and enough coffee to create like a sober like effect. Like I'd always joke, like, yeah, it
That's
creates like
so
this
funny.
sober like effect. It's crazy. And I would kind of make fun of myself for like, why don't I just be sober? But I would just rather do all these things and be like, oh, now a
Mm.
little more Adderall. Oh, now I'm too cracked out. A little more weed, like, and calm myself down. So I definitely have like ADHD. Like I was diagnosed when I was younger, but I will say too that I think ADHD is, you can't focus on things that you don't care about, but you can focus extremely well on things that you care about. So
Mm.
really the key to getting off weed and not caring about it is you have to be on purpose. And this is a very difficult task. And if you drop weed and you're off purpose, this is the first step to getting on purpose, because you're going to have so much more focus. And now, like, you have no other option, because otherwise you're going to be depressed. Because if you smoke weed and you work a job that you hate, it's manageable. You can get through life like that. If you work a job that you hate, you don't have a vice, you will do something about it.
Mm.
And that's why I really feel like it was the greatest decision I ever made, because there's a lot of other decisions like, oh, I got this going, selling Cutco was a great decision. Doing that.
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
pause that. We'll save that
Yeah.
for part two. So I think I'm just going to rewind us a little bit. So you start. Go, yeah, we'll find the spot. I'll just say, yeah, I completely agree with you. It's, without that purpose, you're just floundering, and you have to get rid of that layer so you can get to the other things of life. They say that in recovery groups as well. Like, in order to tackle the deep roots, you have to first look at addictions in one's life, because that's going to be what is really holding back that opportunity for growth. And it's painful. You're right. You experience a lot of pain with it. I did too. I know a lot of people out there, probably you watching, have experienced pain with it. And I think some of the biggest pain is having to accept that there's no way out but through. Like, there's nothing you can do to kind of weasel the way around anymore. And I know weed was definitely that for me as well. It calmed the brain a bit, and eventually, though, it stopped working, as we all know. And that's when it kind of got okay, scary. This is, shit's going down. So, Derek, you told me a story about your cat, and before we dive into part 4 here, I kind of want to hear that story, because that sounded, when you told me that, that seemed, from my perspective, a big pivotal moment for you when you realized, okay, like, Derek, I can't keep fucking around with this anymore. Like, there are consequences, and they are right now. So what happened
Yeah.
with that?
Yeah. So whether you believe in the God or the universe, or maybe you don't believe in anything, but it really, karma was not on my side. So I made it 70 days without weed. And then I was hanging out with this girl that is like a crazy stoner. And I was just with her for like 4 days, and she's just smoking the whole time. And I'm like, no, 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 no. And honestly, we were like on a completely different wavelength. And finally, at one point, like, it was like, well, the last day she's there, I was like, fine, I'll take like one hit and then I'm done. And that made me like re-addicted completely, like one hit, like just all of
Yeah.
a sudden, like back into it. And now I could finally understand her, like that she was like super high too. Like we were on the same energy wavelength. So it was
Yeah.
like the fact
Yeah.
that it was so enjoyable too, like really didn't help for that.
Mhm.
So really this was it was also kind of a sign of, you can smoke weed if you're okay with other being in a relationship with people with the same addiction problem as you, then it
Mhm.
cancels out. But man, I was not entertained by her whatsoever. When like in the past, when I known her, we were both like hard stoners. And then this is the first time that it came out. So I'm like, hey, I don't smoke anymore. And we were just off. And it was like, I was like, this was all like a relationship built on us being high together is what I realized. So, but anyways, I had smoked and I got home and I had a little bit of weed left over from the trip. And so I was like, all right, I'll just like smoke the end of this and then I'll be done. And I smoked and I like instantly fell asleep, but I had left my cat outside. And then I woke up in the morning. All of a sudden, I was like, oh shit, my cat's outside. And I got there and I think she got in a fight with an animal or got her tail cut. And like her tail was just gashed so bad. She was in so much pain, and ultimately we had to have like the tail chopped off because like it completely lost feeling, and it was like $2,000. So it's like, really big financial hit, and obviously that's horrible, for your animal. Like it was negligence on me, but like this would not have happened if I did not smoke weed. Like I was, my tolerance was nothing at that point, and like just I smoked and I just like went out immediately because and I completely forgot about it. It's just like was not on my mind. And that was like the first like really big like punishment I felt like from the universe. And then it happened again when I went to like a Halloween party and I drank quite a bit. And this is why I like stopped drinking too, because I'm just like, this doesn't serve me either. Like you really keep peeling back. Once you get rid of the biggest vice, you'll likely just take out the next vices after that. Is why, again, it was like the best decision I ever made, because it was, it's an upward spiral decision. Like you'll just keep going upward and keep tackling other things in life. But I was at this party and then I ran into this girl that I was talking to at the time, and I was way too drunk to handle it. And I had just smoked weed outside too. And I was just acting a fool, dude. Like this was
Okay.
not good. Like I won't go into the details, but I was just way too out of it to like know how to carry myself. And I was like, I was not expecting to see her. And like, this is not good. I kind of like screwed up that whole situation. And then it was snowing way too hard to even drive home. So I had to like Uber home on Halloween. Which was super expensive. And there's a lot of shit with this story. But then even when I went back the next morning, I got a ride to go pick up my car. I'm driving back home. An icicle comes off the semi in front of me, and I drive over and it pops my tire. And then now I have to
No.
spend $800 to replace all four tires. And I'm just like,
Dang,
every
dude.
time I relapse on weed, like it is very clear that the universe is like, screw you. Like we've been through this. So I keep making it like 30 to 60 days. And then I'm good. And then like just it like the punishments kept getting greater. And it was just very obvious to me, like I can't do this for, however you look at it, whether it's like a spiritual way or like, logical way. I mean, like logically, the weed made me go to sleep and neglect my cat, but it just felt like something greater was going on. Like, if I keep doing this, the punishments are going to get worse and worse from here. And it was very clear to me I needed to stop.
Bro, that is so powerful. And it's a great, comment down below, guys, if you've experienced punishments and warnings from the universe. I've shared in my story that I was on very thin ice. I was, pun intended, I was, my analogy was I was a cat and I had 9 lives and I used 8 and I just used number 9. So the next one was going to be number 10, and cats don't get 10. So it was a moment that every time I went back, I got in trouble. It was like, I was like a kid and I was being naughty, and then I would get punished by the teacher. And it's like the teacher is life. I mean, that's a great analogy. Like life wants us to be the best we can be. And when we've had glimpses of that, I think it's a mix of our consciousness too, because there's guilt involved and there's shame. And so what I found too is there's almost a part of me that wanted to get caught, because I was like, I want to finally be able to just get rid of this without even having to think about it anymore. I don't want to have to work to get rid of it. And I think kind of it sounds like you as well, Derek. We took ourselves to kind of the rock bottom. And you don't have to do that, guys. You can stop with a few lives left intact and to go on and live your life. And so, this was a great episode, Derek, and I really appreciate you sharing your story and the war stories. Guys, stay tuned for next time. So, guys, stay tuned. We're going to be dropping part 4 of Derek's story here, part 4 of this series, and talking about the blessings that came from quitting marijuana, because there's a lot of them, and that's a really important thing. So I think it's important to as well to relate to your war story, and own it, recognize it, see where the mistakes you made, and then see that also, and that's what we're here to teach you, is that you don't have to keep creating war stories. You can start to create victories on the battlefield. And so if you do want some help with that, I do help people get sober from marijuana fast and efficiently. Derek and I worked together, and it was very awesome to see how quickly he went from smoking every day to all of a sudden having these experiences where he's able to see for himself, okay, this is not something I want anymore. And I was just a guide for that. So for $20, you can book a 45. So for $20, you can schedule a 40-minute call with me. I would like to give it to you for free. However, the list would be too long. And when I've given away free calls, people don't show up. So for $20, guys, which is a couple grams, you can hop on a call with me, and I'm going to find out exactly where you are and how we can best help you get off weed starting today. Everyone's story is going to be a little different. Everybody's plan to get sober is going to be a little different. And that's what I'm here for, is to be of that support to you. So also, guys, check out Derek's channel as well. If you're into the social media game, if you're looking to level up maybe your Instagram and start creating that entrepreneurial life, definitely check out his channel. He has a ton of great content on how to best utilize your time to create the best strategy possible to win on the internet. Also hit him up too, just say what's up. He's a pretty cool dude. So, and he's sober, so he's not gonna forget to call you or something, that typical stoners do. So with that, guys, happy 2024 again. Derek, thank you for this message you shared. Any last words for the audience before we wrap this vid?
No, man, just check out part 4 and we'll talk about the benefits and also like the action plan that is implementable for you guys if you're looking for, some guidance on tips to really help with the cravings and make the process easier than it has to be.
Beautifully said, brother. So, all right, guys, talk to you in the next one. Peace.